One of the great been-there-done-it journalists. I first knew him when we were both industrial correspondents, but he is also the former political editor of the most read newspaper in the country, The Sun. It is Trevor Kavanagh. I take you, forgive me for this, but for something that you wrote yesterday, which really struck me as being potent. You wrote, Boris Johnson is a political Humpty Dumpty with a giant ego who had such a great fall, but if he runs for Prime Minister, he will win. Do you stand by that?
I do. The question now is, will he actually run? He'll only run if he thinks he can win. And I don't know about you, we've both been around a long time, and I detect the faintest whiff of failure here. I don't think the numbers are being mustered in the levels that they need to be for him to break through decisively above the 100 mark. And once you get past that point, I mean, after all, nothing can be written off with Boris Johnson, the famous greased piglet. He could manage to bring those about in the end, but once he's mustered them, he then has to go to the public, the members of the party, I mean, and they are, if they choose him as they probably would, that brings a problem of its own, because he would be returned as the chosen candidate for the prime ministership, which is opposed by the majority of the members of parliament who he will have to command. And their loyalty will be put to the test the moment that Privileges Committee comes forward with its report, which almost certainly will be that he lied to Parliament, because it is a Labour-dominated anti-Boris committee. Whether you like that or not is another matter. But then you have the problem that was elucidated this morning by Steve Baker of the European Reform Group, latterly. Now he's a minister for Northern Ireland, but a very significant figure in the Brexit sort of ranks. Not always a die-hard supporter of Boris, but admits that he's a great fan of him as a person. So he says that they will vote, the whole government will implode at the point that Privileges Committee brings its verdict. And he himself will vote against Boris, and so will lots of others. You'd have a prime minister possibly elected and gone again within 3 months. I don't think the Tory party can afford that.
Truly extraordinary. You also wrote in that piece yesterday, and I quote again, Boris Johnson must take much of the blame himself for the catastrophic mess the country is in politically and economically. But on the second point, economically, two of my guests on this programme yesterday said that the economy is principally in a mess, and one of them was Hugh Osmond, a leading business person and business voice. The economy is in a mess because of the profligate spending that Rishi Sunak indulged in and borrowing well before Truss came along, and the COVID lockdowns that he supported. So if Rishi does win, he turns up with marks against him as well on that crucial economic agenda.
Yes, it'd be wonderful if he won and appointed Boris as his chancellor, wouldn't it? I think that there's no doubt that Rishi Sunak's reputation as chancellor has been damaged, not just by the enormous amount of borrowing that took place under his chancellorship, but also those national insurance contribution rises and the rise in corporation tax. So he is not going to be the most popular prime minister as far as the party grassroots are concerned. He is still blamed by many of them for the fact that Boris was ousted in the first place. So this is not a very cosy situation for the Conservative Party. Almost whoever comes out of this as prime minister is going to have a very, very difficult time. We're heading for a recession. We're not doing anything except sort of pacifying the markets. That isn't necessarily the answer to the problems that this country faces. We need considerable reform, much along the lines, indeed, of Liz Truss's tax cuts. I don't think that as prime minister or as chancellor, that Rishi Sunak is the right person for doing those.
Fascinating.